Now, the next one that you're going to hit on, GC, is it's actually a conversation that I feel like I've been getting in on, right? Like I've been traveling the country, going to a bunch of different like trade shows and stuff like that. And people are like, man, two big hurricanes in Florida. You're a real estate. I'm going to property management companies, right? Like conferences, right? People are like, can you even deal, bro? You know, like, is that going to crash the market? What happens when the big one comes? All these kinds of things. So I'm pumped to see what you got on hurricanes, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just think, I mean, it's been noteworthy living through those two big hurricane hits here in Florida. I mean, you and I have lived in Florida almost our entire lives. Yeah. And so we're very used to major storms and hurricanes coming. It's unique to have two big storms that hit right back to back, and the pain and the heartache and the loss of life and the property damage has been a lot for us all to take in. And it's just so emotional. When you see images like this, I pulled images of some of the biggest storms that our country has endured. You know, our hearts go out to those who have lost loved ones and who have been through a rebuild. I've never been affected that way, and I can't imagine what that is. You know, so, but there's just, I feel like I have an opportunity to help people, you know, lean into the emotion of that and be there for our brothers and sisters out there, but also understand how you can make wise investment decisions. Because if you let that emotion guide you, you might otherwise make a poor investment decision that might set you and your family back years, maybe decades from where you might have otherwise been if you didn't let that emotional component seep into your investment decision. And so my first thought as I started to lean into this, I was like, you know, most people think, and before I got to the data, I probably would have thought that real estate markets that had been really severely hit by some of the biggest storms might have taken a long time to recover, if ever.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, let me go to the data. Let me see there. And so I started to pull the data of the biggest storms to hit our country. And then I went and I said, okay, well, 1 year later, what did the market look like? And then I said, well, 10 years later, what did the market look like?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to share that data with you to understand, do major hurricane landfalls really crater and crumble a real estate market?
Interesting, man. And, you know, like we have the images here of the 4 hurricanes that you looked into. You know, I think everybody has this image of Katrina, right? Like that feels like a market that probably got devastated. I remember Hurricane Hugo. It's like the first I had just moved here from Spain, and it was like the first one that was like threatening Miami and nobody worried about. And then I really remember Hurricane Andrew because I was a 12-year-old kid in Miami and just completely like throwing us for a loop for many years, right? Like it felt like Miami didn't recover for many years from a residential standpoint. Probably about 5 years we talked about before and after the hurricane, which I'm sure they talk about in Katrina. And then recently, right, this hurricane in Punta Gorda a couple years ago that just went in there and ravaged Fort Myers and like that Casanova, Captiva area.
The most expensive storm in our history.
Most expensive storm in our history, man. So I'm curious to know what you found.
Well, the data really surprised me. I mean, sometimes I put the data together and I surprise myself. And so I wanted to share it with all of you. So here's the list of the biggest storms that I could find in recent history, and even in some not so recent history, either Cat 4s or Cat 5s. I included Katrina here because it was actually a Cat 3 at landfall, but we know how devastating Katrina was.
But people don't know that Katrina messed up Miami real good. Before it got to New Orleans. I was there, right? Like it went through the South Florida and then it went and hit New Orleans, right? And like it definitely messed up Miami pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. So I saw the year of the landfall, the city or the real estate market that was hit, and what happened to home prices the following year. And this blew my mind. I'm going to point out a couple of them here. Katrina made landfall in 2006. Did you know that home prices actually went up over 5% in New Orleans?
That blows my mind.
Blew my mind.
That blows my mind. Like out of all of these, if there's one that I'm like, no chance it recovered in a year or whatever, I would have put all of my money on Katrina.
Like my bet would have been on there was a lengthy recovery.
Yeah, like 5 years. New Orleans is crushing it now, right? But like not next year.
I was surprised.
Yeah,
I was surprised. And then over the following 10 years, is it performing along what otherwise would have been the trend for that market? And it is for Hurricane Katrina. You know, in 2005, obviously 2005 happened. The 10 years after that was an up and down road. So the following 10 years, you had 8.5% home price appreciation. You don't see depreciation there at all.
I mean, it's 8.5%. 10 years, with the middle of those 10 years being the Great Recession after a ravaged hurricane. Like,
go back to 1992. Hurricane Andrew. Can you believe that the year after the year of the hit and looking 1 year later, 8% home price appreciation in Miami-Dade?
That's shocking to me.
That's
shocking to me.
And over the next
I did not get the sense that people were moving there. I did not get the sense that there was any economic activity out there outside of recovering from this thing for a full year.
You know, and So this is an example of emotion, of what makes sense to us emotionally versus what actually happens in a real estate market. And that's why this data and perspective is important, because we can equip you to make great decisions, or at least take a reason to not invest off the table. I think that's the goal here. I mean, even Hurricane Hugo, which as a country, we're certainly unprepared for how to handle that one. Home prices went up 4% the following year and 40% over the following 10 years. So nowhere here in our biggest hurricane landfalls did we see any type of decline. And certainly not crumbling, cratering, devastation from a real estate pricing perspective.
True.
Interesting data. Now, why is that? Why is that happening?
I don't know, man.
I didn't think about this until I started to do some more research. But if you think about what actually happens when markets get devastated, it comes back to, again, supply and demand. So a lot of supply of housing is unfortunately no longer there. So the supply is lower. The people that were living in those homes now want to live in the same communities. And so now they are going to find another home largely in that same community. So demand actually increases.
And supply decreases.
This was a major unlock for me as I was going through this over the last few weeks. So I think what we can do is put to rest this idea that if we would happen to get hit by a major hurricane in Jacksonville, that it would somehow crater the market and it would be a place that would lose money from a real estate pricing perspective. It just isn't shown in the data.
So that makes sense. Supply and demand. We're seeing that, right? I would say the other thing that people are asking me a lot, that have been asking me a lot as a Florida investor when I walk around, is about insurance. And now that these hurricanes have hit, the next question is not even like, oh my God, our price is going to crash. We're like, well, what are you going to do about insurance? So what do you say about that?
Well, again, there's emotion there too, especially since 2020 to 2022. As investors, we saw our insurance costs go up. And now we're like, oh man, the emotion of this devastation coming from 2 hurricanes hitting in a short period of time on the backdrop of insurance costs going up for those years, we must be in for a rough road. But when I asked questions like that to the people I trust the most in the insurance space, I got a very different answer. And so I wanted to share this with you. This is an email that and a text that I got from our good friend Whitney Ritchie, who is a dear friend of the show.
The original flow from Progressive.
The original flow from Progressive.
The person that introduced the two of us.
There you go. There you go. And a wonderful teammate and provider of insurance for a ton of JWB clients. You in the chat, many of you are saying that you know Whitney very well. She's always here to give. And so I said, what's going on with insurance? Should we be worried about where insurance rates are going to go going forward? And so this is how her and I talk over email. I said, hey, Whit, I'm just going to put your exact email on the screen. She's like, well, it's not going to be very professional, but I thought it'd be good for you all to see.
Give them the cliff notes, GC. What did you say?
Well, so basically what she said is, listen, insurance providers are prepared for big catastrophic events. This is their business, right? They know that hurricanes come to Florida, just like natural disasters come to other places in the country. So there is a part of their pricing model that is built into expecting this. And she also helped me understand the reinsurance market, which is basically just insurance for insurance companies. And so when a major storm comes, what's really on the hook there is the reinsurance market. The insurance company is largely limited to, for lack of a better word, a deductible there. So she said what we were not prepared as an insurance market was the rash of lawsuits that happened from 2020 to 2022, which were legal loopholes that were used to be able to get a lot of free roofs for a lot of people out there and put a lot of pressure on the insurance market that they were not prepared for. Those types of events and the glut of it, and the fact that we had like 10 times the number of claims in Florida than any other state for free roofs, was not something that's covered under reinsurance. So it's the real risk of insurance premiums going up, according to Whitney, and according to her, all of the people that she networks with, those who are in the know in the insurance market here in Florida and abroad. She says that we're feeling really good about what rates are going to look like next year.
Interesting.
Even though we just had these 2 major hurricanes. I was like, wait, can you give me some data? If I say that to the people on the show, they're going to say, I don't know. Can you give me an example of why you feel this way? And she said, well, look at what happened for Hurricane Ian. Hurricane Ian hit. It was the most expensive storm on record. Of course, the storms now are probably going to surpass that, but that is the most expensive storm on record. Insurance rates were largely flat and have actually seen some decreases from 2022 to 2024. Hurricane Ian hit in 2022.
That's right.
So, and what actually happened is we had 2020 to 2022 is when insurance rates went way up. That was actually a period of generally less hurricane activity.
Mm.
So it comes down to, what are these insurance companies prepared for?
Yeah.
They're prepared for hurricanes.
Yeah.
Right. They have the reinsurance market to continue to prepare them to make sure that they're solvent through that.
Yeah.
What they're not prepared for was that the legal loopholes. We have secured that. Whitney, I wanted to share this because Whitney's just a wonderful resource. Whitney, in addition to winning a lot of awards here, like Best Insurance Agency in Northeast Florida and Fastest 50 and Gator 100 award winner, she also was voted the Legislative Supporter of the Year for her industry.
Let's go with it.
He was up there in Tallahassee, closing these loopholes for all of us as property investors. And so she's feeling really good about rates going into next year. She is thinking normalizing, right? And she does not have the fear that these two hurricanes are going to create large increases in insurance premiums. So music to our ears.
Yeah, that summarizes my favorite things about this show: data, perspective, and a little bit of insider secrets.
There you go.
Right?
Especially.
Like, go figure that these like actuary and math nerds know how to price risk for things that they know are coming and have 100-year tables on, but they don't know how to price the black swans of like lawyers rushing in to find a loophole, right?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it makes perfect sense. That is the big risk. And it makes perfect sense that insurance companies are insured.
Yeah.
So, so take us away with the big data plus perspective takeaway.
Yeah. Study of the most devastating hurricanes to hit the U.S. showing that home prices actually increased in the year following the storm's landfall. And this is due to that increased demand and lack of supply because of the storm. Those real estate markets continue to appreciate significantly over the next 10 years. Hurricanes, of course, cause a temporary disruption, but they do not alter the short run or long run pricing models for that real estate market. And here's the bottom line: hurricanes should not be a deciding factor in which real estate market you choose.
Yep. Yep. Love it, man.